Big changes happening over here at Renegade. I know many of you have been following our journey, and with more than 400 graduates across 15 countries, we have learned a thing or two, and we are listening loudly. As we've grown, expanded, and evolved, what we've learned is that this container, this curriculum and content, the community and collaboration and the accountability, it's much bigger than an 8-week intensive accelerator. So we are now an annual experience. It's ongoing, and you don't have to wait until spring or fall to join us. We are accepting applications and nominations right now. And we're enrolling and onboarding new women every single week. We are enrolling female leaders, executives, and founders from all over, across all different industries. We are industry agnostic intentionally, and these are like-minded, like-hearted women who are fiercely loyal to each other's results and success. You can learn more at renegade.global. We'd love to explore this with you. Just apply today, and we'll be in touch.
You go from doing all the things and wearing all the hats to suddenly finding yourself in a position where you're supposed to lead and inspire and set that plan and the vision, and the role really changes. And for me, it kind of felt like it shifted overnight.
I'm Amy Jo Martin. Welcome to the Why Not Now show. You know that thing you've been thinking about doing? Yeah, that one. Why not now? Have you ever actually taken the time to ask yourself, what's stopping me? Let's talk it through. This is your chance to give that idea the attention it deserves and take action. Each episode, I have a chat with a fascinating person, from entrepreneurs to athletes, celebrities, my parents, rocket scientists, and all walks of life. We talk through a critical time when they've asked themselves, why not now? We dissect that day or even that moment, step by step. Kerry Michaels is on the show today. She is the co-founder and CEO of William Murray Golf. Yes, as in Bill Murray. She shares her story about how she got into business with Bill Murray and his brothers, and it is quite the story. She oversees millions of dollars in annual revenue, and it has been a fascinating journey. This is a true story of asking forgiveness versus permission, and how she entered into the conversation pitching Bill and his brothers about this business idea. It's all about taking control of your own career when it comes to Kerry, and that's exactly what she's done. This is a perfect case study in having a moment of bravery line up with a why not now idea and taking action. This has landed her in the seat as co-founder and CEO. Kerry shares some entrepreneurial lessons, especially as it relates to her role and how it's changed over time as the business has grown. She also talks through how she specifically invests in herself and how letting go, delegating, has been one of the biggest lessons she's had. Without further ado, here's my friend, Kerry Michaels. Kerry, my friend, welcome to the Why Not Now podcast. I'm so excited to have you on the show, and in the spirit of Why Not Now, can you tell me about a time when you had a big decision to make and you made that renegade move? You asked yourself, why not now?
Well, first off, Amy Jo, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really excited about this. So my why not now moment came in the spring of 2015, and I was on a golf course. And there's a little bit of a buildup to this, so I want to give some of the backstory. So prior to this why not now moment, I had spent about 3 to 4 months building out the concept for what is now William Murray Golf. And I had been working at the Chive and kind of working with the team there. And for those of you who don't know what the Chive is, it's a humor blog, and they gained a lot of popularity probably over 10 years ago, selling T-shirts with Bill Murray's face on it. So they had done, an incredible job building this network of people that love T-shirts with Bill's face. And when I started there in 2014, I was kind of digging through sales, and I was like, wow, this is really incredible. They're doing a great job with these T-shirts. But I had come across this one T-shirt with our now William Murray Golf logo on it. And I just thought it was brilliant. And when I looked at the sales, I was like, oh my gosh, they sold, 2,000 units of this shirt, and it was all for charity. And they did it within 48 hours. And I had come from Oakley, and I loved that sport performance world. And, so I said to the team there, I said, hey, do you guys mind if I just kind of dig in here and see if there's something bigger than just what's on this T-shirt? Because it felt like there could be a brand. And so the more I kind of dug in, everyone knows Bill for Caddyshack, right? But the more research I did, I was like, wow, Bill is he's one of 9 kids, and there are 6 brothers. And all 6 brothers grew up caddying growing up. And so Caddyshack is a very real story for them. And it was his brother, Brian. I know, who knew? And so there's a lot of truth there. And they're all in the Caddy Hall of Fame. So there was just, this authenticity in it. And I was like, oh, this could be real. This could be big. And if you kind of look at how Bill shows up when he's on the golf course, I would look up pictures of him playing at Pebble Beach. And I was like, gosh, he looks like he's having so much fun. He doesn't care what he's wearing out there. He'll be in head to toe camo or a kimono or who knows what it is. And people love it. And he's a lot of fun. And so having come from sport performance, I kind of said to myself, I was like, there's the white space is that there's no personality on the golf course. And every brand, even the disruptors like Oakley, all looked the same. No one was doing anything different. And so I call it the sea of blue stripe polos. And I was like, well, why not, what if Bill could be the face of a brand that actually brought personality onto the course and made it fun and not so stuffy? So that was the initial concept. And so, I say I incubated this company under the Chive with my co-founder, Brandon Barrett. So he and I were both at the Chive together. And we had to sell it first internally to kind of get their buy-in. And then, because they had a relationship through the T-shirts, we had an opportunity to kind of pitch it to his lawyer, to Bill's lawyer. And he basically said, no, I don't think this is a good idea. And please don't approach anyone in the family on your own without me present. And so I was like, I was so bummed out. And because we had spent so much time kind of building this out, and it felt like such a fun, authentic brand. Speeding up a bit to that spring, the Chive they had a sponsorship at a golf tournament that was hosted by Bill and his brothers. And so, we were hoping we were going to try and find an opportunity to meet with Bill's lawyer and someone in the family and do more of a formal presentation. But we weren't really, it looked like the odds were pretty low. So we get there, and I'm actually out on the course by myself because all the guys that I was doing this with were actually playing golf. And I was not. I was there, I was there on business, and I was on the course, and I actually had a chance encounter with Joel Murray. And at first I didn't even know who he was. And he is the youngest in the family. So he's one of Bill's brothers. And I started chatting with him, and this is where I had that why not now moment. And I was like, well, do I talk to him about this idea? Do I pitch him now? I don't have my formal presentation. I could probably pull it up on my phone, but I didn't have the rest of the team with me either. And so I was by myself, and his lawyer had also told us, don't approach the family without me present. And so,
here we go.
and so I was a little nervous, but he seemed really great and nice. And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Let's just do it. Let's plant the seed and see what he says. So I think I made some joke about, hey, Joel, I feel like we should make you some better golf polos. We need to make you something more fun. And he laughed and said, yeah, actually, my brothers and I have always wanted to do something more fun in golf apparel, but we don't know how. I said, well, perfect. I actually do. And I have a presentation here. I'd love to share
right here.
Right here. I'm ready to go. And so the next thing you know, I was on a golf cart with Joel for the next 3 to 4 hours. And we talked about the concept and how something like this might work. And kind of the rest is history.
Amazing. Thank goodness you said, screw it, let's just do it. Right? Thank goodness that you followed that voice. And back to Chive, by the way, I remember it was almost like a secret society. If you saw that shirt, you're like, yes. Oh, they're cool. They're in. And I hadn't known that story. Like it's such a cool, to be the co-founder and CEO. And then having found your way, like the odds and likelihood of probably seeing this vision into execution probably weren't that, you might have had to chance at but you did it. And I mean, you're really doing it. In 2021, you had $15.8 million in revenue. You're winning awards left and right. So we're both part of WPO, Women Presidents Organization. And it's pretty rad to watch you just soar. So there's a story you've shared about the 6 brothers flying into Austin. Can you tell us a little bit about this? Like, first of all, who knew they were all caddies in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah. So, one of the ideas behind William Murray Golf was we didn't want to create prints just to create prints. We wanted them to be rooted in something that was authentic and something that had stories behind them. So anyone can do a print, right? But we wanted it to have meaning. And so, of course we have, decades of Bill's movies to draw from for inspiration, but this concept, we are in business actually with Bill and his 5 brothers. And so this is a family thing that we're a part of. And so we wanted to figure out how do we bring in, their stories and how do we bring in some of that family element. And so we needed to be able to sit down with everybody and talk to them about what do they want and what do they see this brand doing and what are some stories that we can tell that people might not know about now. So we've had a couple of really fun conversations with them. I remember my very first one was in the spring, actually, of 2016. And it was right after we got our contract signed. And Brandon and I were with all the brothers, our first meeting, and we're showing them some designs. And we're chatting with them about what they want to see in this brand. And I remember Bill going off on this whole concept of, well, I need a fabric that I can sleep in, like I need to be able to sleep in it for like a day, maybe 2 days. That's how comfortable I want it to be. And I was like, okay, that's great.
Good input.
This is really great input. And we showed him, actually the first polo we launched looked like a Cubs jersey. And in this meeting with the brothers, we said to them, listen, we know you guys are big Chicago Cubs fans. What do you think about doing a polo that kind of looks like a jersey? And we showed them the concept and we were like, do you think this is okay? And Bill's like, yeah, this is great. And mind you, this is the spring of 2016 and we were going to launch in the fall. And so he's like, yes. And you know what? Let's call that polo, This Is the Year. And I was like, oh, you want to do that?
Bill is bold. Yeah. Bold. He's a renegade, isn't he? Total renegade.
Yeah. It was bold, especially, So anyways, fast forward, that was the year, a couple weeks after we launched that polo. And it sold out within 24 hours. The Cubs went on to win the World Series. And so we always say Bill has some sort of little pixie dust, magic pixie dust on things. And I was like, thank gosh they won that year, because I would have felt like we had added another curse to the to the Cubs. But
wow. And what did that do to your business? So like as we shift gears and look at, you as the business operator and even right now in the most dynamic of times and variables, was that a peak, like a big tipping point for you for sales and just for awareness, I imagine? Huge.
This was our proof of concept, right? The fall of 2016, we were still under the chive. So we incubated under the chive. We, really tested out that concept. And so for that first polo we launched, to sell out within 24 hours, we were like, well, I guess we're onto something. And we did get a ton of press in the very early days when we launched too. So that was incredible. It was absolutely a tipping point for us. But I think it was also a signal of, wow, this brand can be something on its own. It can stand on its own two legs. So that's where Brandon and I in early 2017, we split it off and we became our own C Corp. And then we kind of, went off from there. So yeah, really incredible way to start the brand.
Yeah. And I mean, you were in that, have you been in the CEO seat the entire time?
Yes.
First time CEO, right?
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that journey too. Biggest surprises about sitting in that chair, especially with that type of a catalyst, but then also COVID. And then right now with, I imagine, just not only supply chain, but with just in general, the world is in a different spot, another big different spot. So yeah, what are some of the things that you've learned about business that have been surprising to you?
Throughout my career, I always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur of sorts. My dad was an entrepreneur. I got to see that from a young age and kind of watch him build something from the ground up. So I felt like it was in my blood. I always wanted to do it, but I just never quite knew what that thing was. And so throughout my career, I had done everything from finance and marketing, operations. I'd run websites. I'd done a lot of different things and gotten my hands on a lot of things. So I felt like it really prepared me well for this entrepreneurial journey. But what's really surprised me, back to your question, is that the very early days, when it's just me and Brandon in a corner figuring this stuff out, I got to do all the things, and I wore all the hats, and, I had a lot of control over how this business was being built. And what was surprising to me is, I always thought having, being able to hire employees and stuff was going to make everything so much easier. But it really was challenging for me because I had to learn when to let go and when to delegate, and learn that the role of an entrepreneur really does change as the business grows. And you go from doing all the things and wearing all the hats to suddenly finding yourself in a position where you're supposed to lead and inspire and set that plan and the vision, and the role really changes. And for me, it kind of felt like it shifted overnight. It was a couple of years into the business. And then you kind of throw onto it, COVID and, recessions and supply chains and all the things. And it's challenging, but it's also what makes it fun and rewarding at the same time.
Yeah, it's like getting, I imagine your PhD in entrepreneurship quickly, right? The kind of that hard school of hard knocks. When you say it changed kind of overnight, what were some of the drastic changes that you felt in terms of your specific role and your daily focus and what you were responsible for from a day-to-day perspective?
Well, when we started hiring people to, answer customer emails and to deal with our warehouse and to merchandise the website and help put in the buys, I'd find myself saying, well, what am I supposed to do? And it was also, I think, a challenge to let go of some of the ways that I prefer things to be done. There's, I definitely have some of that controlling side of me, as I know many entrepreneurs do. And so that was a turning point for me. And it's when I realized I ended up getting an executive coach around this time, because I really wanted to lean into, how do I do this the right way? Because I could feel myself kind of starting to fumble and just not being sure of how I was supposed to lead. And I didn't want to micromanage, but I just, when it's your baby, it feels like your baby and you want everything to be just perfect and right. It can be hard to let some of that stuff go.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Hi, everyone. If you are digging this podcast, please do us a favor and subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. It just takes a moment and it means a ton to us. Someone once said to me, it was a fellow entrepreneur, I think they said, like, when they realized how presumptuous they were being when they thought they could do it better than the other people, right? Like some of the things that they weren't great at. And they're like, wow, that's my role, and my job is to really make myself irrelevant in the, day to day and hire smart people. Mentioning, it is your baby. Speaking of which, this was my next question. So you are a mom too.
Yes. Yeah.
And, I'd love to share, we believe in work-life integration versus separation. And as an entrepreneur, I dare someone to challenge me on that topic, because I have never met anyone who has been able to compartmentalize, especially when you have your own company. That being said, what are some of the things that you've learned that might be helpful for others as they are navigating entrepreneurship and parenthood?
I'm a mom of two, and my daughter now is 10 and my son is 8. But when I started this business, my son was 4 months old. So it was, he was young. Those are tough years too.
That just right there. Can we just all process that for a minute? Starting the company with a 4-month-old, like that takes bravery. First of all, you are a total renegade. Okay, I just want to acknowledge and honor that for a minute. Okay, continue on. Continue on. Having 2 babies.
2 babies. And I think having a support system at home is really, really critical. But, a lot of people say, they talk about work-life balance. And I'm always the first one to say there is no balance. There's no balance, and at home, I have to realize there's so many things I miss. And I'm okay with that, because I'm also doing what I love and what I'm passionate about. And so I might not make it to every volleyball game and basketball game and doctor's appointment, but I am doing what I love. And I think that allows me to show up as a better mom and as a better wife. And so that gives me peace of mind. And I used to worry about that stuff. You always talk about mom guilt. I don't have as much of it as I used to in the early days of building this brand. I think in the beginning, I used to feel worse, but now I'm like, you know what? It is what it is. And this is what it takes to run this company. And I'm also trying to be an example to my kids of what it means to work hard and to do the things. So it's not perfect, but I'm grateful and lucky to have a husband who's right there with me to pick up my slack. And I have a lot of slack. I feel like I'm always forgetting the things. My girlfriends know if they have a question, they're usually texting me and my husband to find something out, because they know I'm probably like, I have no idea when that is. Ask Joe.
Oh, same. I know. I was talking to a friend, a fellow renegade, and she's got a pretty intense career. And she said she realized the other day she didn't know where the lunch boxes were. And for a moment, she was just like, oh my gosh, I'm the worst. And then she caught herself and she's like, I think that's okay, because when she is there with her kids, she's there with them and of course does her best, but you don't necessarily need to know where the lunch boxes are if that's not the best,
It's not
a way that
the little things that you let go, that you think a mom is supposed to know where the lunch boxes are and all, every event at school. I don't know when half the events at school are anymore because there's too many to keep track of, and moms are supposed to know all that stuff. But those are some of those things we want to rewrite that a little bit. And it doesn't have to be all on us.
No. It's everybody involved, rewrites that script, and they say it takes a village. It takes the whole village to rewrite it. Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a woman, Kat Cole. She has been an executive at some real big brands, and she's been on the podcast, and she's a mom. And she said, this was right after Lincoln was born. And I said, hey, he was still in the NICU. I remember almost canceling the interview because it was like, is this right? Again, mom guilt. I was like, should I?
Yeah.
He's just sleeping and 8 hours a day, just sitting next to his incubator. Yeah. But I was like, okay, give me some advice here. And she said, she traveled a lot when her kids were younger, and C-level executive, big corporate brand. And she said, I realized that I could exchange mom pride for mom guilt. And whenever I was missing him or them or, the kids, I had to kind of remember, what, they're with people they love, that love them. And I'm missing them more than they miss me. Right? It helps to know that, right? Like, you're probably not the one they're thinking about at the moment, but for sure, kids need their moms. But I love the mom pride versus guilt, and that's.
I love that.
Look at your kids. Look at growing up, and our children are seeing a different way to do things with the women in their lives playing pretty impactful roles in different ways. So. What's one lesson, Kerry, that you find yourself learning over and over and over? It could be personal, it could be professional, just anything.
It's really funny that when I really think about it, every year, we've been growing very quick. And so every year I'm like, oh, as soon as we close this round of funding, or as soon as I'm able to hire this next person, things are going to be so much easier. And, suddenly we're going to be able to coast. And I find myself learning over and over again that this is hard. It's always hard, no matter how big you get, no matter how big your team is, no matter how much money you raise, the challenges are just different. And they don't go away because you reach some milestone. And in fact, the challenges just get bigger, and, it almost weighs a little heavier because there are more people involved. So just when I think things are going to get easy, that's not what this journey is. When you're an entrepreneur, there are so many ups and downs, and that's all part of it.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. It's like choose your hard, right? Hopefully you enjoy it, because it's all going to end up being hard, especially the road of entrepreneurship and startups. It's not for the faint of heart. It is a roller coaster, right? It's like the Chicago weather. If you don't like how your day's going, wait 5 minutes, and I bet it's going to change. That's great advice. And when I say the word renegade, who comes to mind?
One person that really comes to mind for me first is the founder of Beauty Counter, Greg Renfrew. So she is incredible because not only is she building this brand that's changing skincare and beauty and making it clean, right? She's building this amazing brand, but she's out there lobbying on Capitol Hill to make change. And for me, I'm like, wow, that's really cool. Not only is she building this amazing brand, but she's trying to make the change that's so necessary in this country. So she's one that immediately comes to mind. I have another couple. There's 2 women here in town, Kerry Rupp and Sarah Brand, who started True Wealth Ventures. So they are complete renegades in my mind as well. They've built a fund that is geared towards investing in women founders. But what's really fascinating to me is that they're also out there trying to change the narrative on what it means to invest in women. And they're highlighting some of the challenges. And so they talk about all the challenges that women have in raising money, but then they're telling investors, they're like, hey, it's actually a smart decision to invest in women because more diverse founding teams have more profitable businesses. So it's also a smart decision. So I love the way that they're changing that script. and really kind of flipping that narrative.
I love that. We've got some incredible women here in Austin, and it's so true. I remember when I thought I was going to start a fund after my first company, and here we are. We do have Renegade Global Ventures now, but it's completely different than what I would have ever thought. And I was interviewing a lot of fund managers, just learning like what exactly does a fund manager do, right? Other than look for investment, like what does your day look like, and so on and so forth. And I had this one individual say, gentleman. He said, when I hear about female-only focused funds, I think charity. And I was like, okay, deep breath. I got really curious. Like, what does that mean? And I just kept asking questions. And that was probably 8+ years ago. And I think that narrative has changed, or that story that some people might be telling themselves. But I love that the data is there that's just false. It's nice to see that at least we're seeing, I just read an article that several female managed and led funds are outperforming male funds this year so far. And I want to preface that with, yes, I don't have the article at my fingertips at the moment, but I mean, there's proof in just the bottom line with female leaders. If you have a few women on that C-suite and or on the board level, there's research that the bottom line is going to be healthier and there's less controversy and legal issues.
Right.
Okay, so I have this question for you, and I hope it doesn't come out of left field, but it's super easy.
Okay.
There is such a humble nature about you, Kerry, and you are, first of all, you are a legit leader, and this company, that's not only just taken off, but like the gravity of what you've built and what you're building with your team is huge. However, you still maintain this like lovely, pure level of humility. Would you say is that your upbringing? Or is that something you even think about? Is that just you? I love it. Like, you're the most down to earth yet rock star.
My dad is a very humble man as well. So maybe I just come by it naturally. I don't really.
Yeah. Do you remember learning that when you were younger? Like, okay, let's be humble.
No, I don't know. I think sometimes too, though, I see myself as more of an introvert. So maybe there's some of that, I love being around people, but really, social situations, I'm more of an introvert in a lot of ways. So maybe that's where some of that comes across. I don't know.
There's a quiet confidence that's so powerful in a positive way. I love it. And I've been able to witness you in business settings and in big, rooms with a lot of people, and there's a presence. I love witnessing it, and you're a student of the game, clearly, but definitely a big player. So if we were to, first of all, what keeps you up at night? Anything?
I got lots of things keeping me up at night. Although I will say I do sleep pretty well. No, but we have a lot of investors in the business. I have 70 angel investors behind William Murray Golf. So, it is a lot to hold. And so I worry a lot about making sure that we are doing right by them, living up to their expectations, and that we're going to one day have a return that they're going to be excited about. That's really what drives me and what keeps me up at night.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of people who, when you write checks, even regardless of the size, I know a lot of people feel they have at least a voice, maybe not a vote, but they feel like they can share their opinions, and hearing and listening and respecting, but also staying true to your course of what the business better than anyone. So that's got to be tough. And then just this, as we're navigating supply chain issues and the little R, big R, whatever we're calling it these days, recession or not recession, any advice you would give to anyone, or just things that you're learning on, navigating through this season?
Yeah. I think what I have learned through COVID is you've always got to be planning for the downside. And it's something we talk about in WPO all the time. and, making sure that you're doing your scenario planning and whatnot. And I felt like before COVID, I was a great planner and I would manage cash really well. And I always felt like that was a strength for me. But kind of going through COVID and all the challenges we've been in the last few years, I'm like, oh, I don't know that I was doing enough of the downside. Right. And really thinking about, well, what happens if the world, changes and suddenly sales turn off or, they go down by 50%. And then what do you do? And so it's really taught me to prepare differently. You always look at the upside. As an entrepreneur, you're just inclined to just think, oh my gosh, our business is going to scale. We're going to double. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And that's a lot of the planning that I had been doing. But looking at the downside is equally, I think, is important, because you need to mitigate that risk as the CEO. You need to make sure that you're prepared if and when things don't go as planned. So that's been a lesson. That's been a lesson for me.
That's huge. And the scenario planning and just, when I'm not going to speak for you, but when I went to school, collegiate years, I don't think there were very many, if any, entrepreneurship type of, like SKUs or classes per se. There were probably a few classes, but there really weren't degrees per se. But I think about just like pilots, they have scenario planning and they have, simulators and training. If this plane starts to da-da-da, then I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And I don't know that there have been some real happy stretches of time and some romanticism around the glory days of funding and of entrepreneurship. That's a great point. And I don't know that there's a lot of education around, it's all going to be a mystery, but we can't just accept the fact that the mystery is the plan, because that's not a plan, right?
Not a plan. Yeah.
A few rapid fire questions and I'll let you off the hook. So how do you invest in yourself?
With time.
Oh,
so,
love it.
There are days that I won't get in the office until 9:30 or 10 in the morning. And I always used to feel guilty about that, but it's because I'm getting kids ready for school. And then I go and work out and I'll do a long run or a bike ride or something. But for me, if I'm not staying active most days of the week, then I feel my mental health kind of slip. It helps me to show up better here at the office if I'm able to get in a good workout after I get those kids to school.
That's awesome. Yeah. A non-negotiable, right? That there's business ROI. When we can correlate those two things, it makes it so much easier too, right? To be like, nope, this is actually good for the business.
I got to do this.
Yeah. And pirates or ninjas, who's tougher and why?
I think ninjas, they're stealthy. They're secret. You never know when they're going to come up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
It feels right.
That's fair. Did you grow up golfing?
No, I grew up more playing tennis, to be honest.
Would you consider yourself a good golfer?
I don't know if I would say good, but I golf. I'm also very competitive. So, I would like to be a lot better than I am.
Any fun facts have you golfed with Bill before, I'm guessing? And
actually, no, I've never golfed with Bill. I've, watched him golf, but I have never played alongside.
Any fun facts about him? People always ask me about Shaquille and Dwayne Johnson. And one of my favorite things to share is that Shaquille eats several pieces of gum at a time, not just one, because he's just bigger and everything is right. I gave him a piece of gum one day and he's like, I don't just take one. And I'm like, oh, and it's just a fun fact. But anything that comes to mind that will give us more insight into this character?
I remember once he told me that he never travels on an airplane without packing his pockets with cookies or some candies. And I was like, really, what? Why do you do that? He's like, because there's always some little kid who's crying on the airplane and all they need is a cookie. And so he really, I thought that was really sweet. So next time you see him, ask what kind of snacks he has in pockets.
That's awesome. Doesn't that speak volumes just about someone in general?
Yeah.
That little fun fact.
Yeah.
Anything specific that you've read lately, or an article or watched or a book or whatever or show that you're like, I'm digging this?
So I just read Positive Intelligence, and we read that with WPO. And there was so much about that book that really stuck with me. So I loved it. I think it's really helped shift my mindset in those moments where I'm really upset and I just want to have a moment where I freak out. And it's helped me to really understand what's going on in that moment and to figure out how to channel that in a different way and to really see the positive that can come from it.
I love that. It was, great theory and concept and execution.
Yeah.
This is such a good call. Okay, so final question here. Let's take you back to that moment in 2015. Where did you say it's Joel? His brother's name is Joel. And here you are, and you're like, you've got this window of opportunity, like this moment of bravery. And you're thinking, you're like playing the scenario in your mind. I can only imagine all the thoughts of, but my team, do I do this solo? And I was told not to. And if you could go back to yourself in that moment and say one thing before you were brave and, kind of crossed that starting line with the conversation, what would you say to yourself?
I guess I would say, Kerry, you have no idea what you're about to get into, but after this golf cart ride, your life will never be the same. And there's going to be lots of ups and downs along the way. But yeah, that golf cart ride changed my life forever.
Oh, that's so good. That's such a good story. I just love it so much. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for being a leader and willing to share your story. There aren't a ton of women who are, putting the numbers on the board that you are out there, and seeing is believing. So I appreciate you sharing, and your wisdom and time means everything.
Well, thank you, Amy Jo. It's been such a pleasure, and I've loved calling you a friend.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the show. Hit me up on social media to let me know what you think. I'm at Amy Jo Martin on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I want to hear your Why Not Now moments so I can share them on the show. Just send me a note to whynotnow@amyjomartin.com. For show notes and other offers, you can visit amyjomartin.com/whynotnow. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my email newsletter for exclusive content and announcements. A big thanks to Rock Salt Music for all of the tunes by the talented John Coggins. And of course, a hat tip to Richard Brewer for editing and producing the show. I'll see you next time. And until then, why not now?